beginning to look a lot like last year. Every game I watch.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the real Blazers Uprise post-game show here on a Monday night. In case you're watching back after the stream or have been in this stream the entire time, for some reason when I started the stream, it made a completely separate stream than what we tweeted out and what you guys were expecting us on. Very confusing. Don't really know how that happened. Never really had that happen before. And, you know, I've done this a million times already. So, anyway, we're here now. We're ready to recap this game. This is going to be a little shorter stream, probably an hour long. I'm going to talk about basically this game as well as the craziness that is the NBA today. The tank picture, as this was a good game to lose for the Blazers. The Rockets, of course, trying to catch the Golden State Warriors, who the Blazers have their pick. Seeing if that pick can move up from 13 to 12. It's very close. The Rockets are now tied in the win column with the Golden State Warriors. So we're going to talk about that tank picture as well as just a couple NBA nuggets from today, including a player that could be potentially banned for life due to insider gambling. So we're going to talk about that as well. That's going to be a juicy topic later today. If you don't know what we're talking about, just hang on, because we're going to get into that because it's a wild story, man, a wild story. But first, this stream is sponsored by BetUS. You can receive 3 125% deposit bonuses. Not one, not two, but three, which is a phenomenal offer that BetUS is offering you guys. You just got to sign up with the link in the description box below and use promo code JOIN125 to activate those 3 125% bonuses. You can get in on Sweet 16 and Elite 8 this weekend for March Madness, which should be fun. A lot of good teams still remaining, so it should be some good basketball, as well as MLB futures as the MLB season starts tomorrow. Or not tomorrow. Thursday. Today's Monday. Yeah, 3 days from now. It feels like it starts tomorrow. So I've been helping a few MLB creators with graphics, and it feels like it starts tomorrow because I still got some work left to do. And, you know, that's hectic, and life is hectic, and YouTube is hectic, and everything is hectic. Including that final 17 minutes that the Blazers had there. They were competitive in this game, Eric. They got up by 4 at half. They remained up by 4 halfway through the third quarter, and then they completely fell apart. Jalen Green loves dunking against the Blazers. Although he, you know what? Scratch that. Shout out to Alvaro Bazan, gifted 1 Blazers Uprise membership. And thank you, Alvaro. And guess who got it, Eric?
Taylor Packer.
For the second time ever, Taylor Packer gets a gifted membership. Shout out to Taylor Packer.
Lucky.
Shout out to Alvaro. Appreciate you, Alvaro. Thank you, man, for the gifted membership. Appreciate you as always. Always good having you and Taylor in here. And now Taylor's name is in green, thanks to you. So shout out to Alvaro. I love the little gift that opens on the screen. I didn't even know it did that. But that's pretty cool. Anyway, Blazers, yeah, basically final 17 minutes fall apart. And it was weird because the Rockets didn't necessarily shoot the ball well. They got 13 offensive boards. They forced 16 turnovers. They didn't turn over the ball much, only 8 times. They didn't shoot the ball well, 40% from the field, 31% from 3. But they got to the line 25 times and made 24 free throws. So that's why they were able to put 110 on the board, because you had Dylan Brooks, 2 for 13, 0 for 8 from 3. Fred VanVleet, 5 for 18, 2 for 8 from 3. That's what? $70 million this year for those shooting performances. Nice. And then you got Jalen Green, 9 for 26. So,
including one play where Fred VanVleet chucked 3 threes and in one possession, and Jalen Green bricked one too. They missed 4 threes on one possession and got the ball back a 5th time. And I forgot what happened after that. But
you're going to have some comical stuff happen the rest of this Blazers season, and we're going to be here to break it down. So we're going to talk about just some of the individual performances like we normally do, and then do Tankathon. And as I said, stream probably a little shorter tonight. We will be live again, of course, Wednesday. We got a jam-packed schedule the rest of the season. Packed road trip as the Blazers just played the first game of a 7-game, 15-day road trip. So, Eric, you want to start with the good, the mid, or the bad?
Well, let's start with the good.
Maybe chat.
Well, actually, we start the bad. One of our internet connections.
Oh, what do you mean? Are we lagging?
No, but I don't know, your on my end is very choppy. I don't know if that's just Skype or what. But
could it be all the rain clouds hanging
out.
over you? I don't
maybe.
think I'm. Chat's gonna have to let us know.
I don't think you're lagging. You're just like your thing's cutting out. Oh, there you go. There's the lag.
Oh, you spoke it into existence. You spoke it into existence. That was only like a second of lag, though, so I don't even know what's happening. You spoke it into existence. That was only like.
Yeah.
Why did my audio start playing out loud? Actually, it's Eric lagging. I don't know. I'll do a chat poll. The good, the mid, or the bad? What do you want to start with, chat? You guys run this post-game show because I apparently can't, because it's going to make new links and it's going to get little lag hiccups and yeah, just fun stuff. Chat, 20 votes. Want to start with the bad. You guys love bad things, don't you? You guys love criticism. Okay, who are we criticizing today, Eric? I have a name in mind, but I'm going to let you say it.
Well, I know who you want to criticize, Chris Murray. Your favorite punching bag.
I mean, it's not even criticism. That's who we're going to start with, okay? It's not even criticism because, like, guys miss shots, right? And it's like, he's supposed to shoot the shots that he is shooting. So it's not even like he should do anything different, right? If he's trying to make shots. That 2-game hot shooting streak, and it was like, oh, maybe he's turning the corner. 2 games since then, not a good sign. He was 1 for 6 last game against the Nuggets, and he was 0 for 6 tonight. So he has back-to-back games of 3 for 6 shooting from 3. People get their hopes up a little bit, and he's 1 for his last 12. Not good, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, he's been fine other than the shooting, but yeah, the shooting's been rough the last couple games. You hope he improves on it. Everyone has bad shooting games and stuff, so I don't think you can read too much into it for 2 games, but the outlier so far is the good shooting night, so you want to make that not the outlier. And unfortunately right now, he hasn't had enough games where he made it that way. So until he does, you got to he can't be considered a good shooter until he proves he is a good shooter. So this is more normal until he proves otherwise, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And he's going to need more than 2 games to prove otherwise. Like, I think he is capable of improving, but I mean, it just has not been a good year shooting the 3 ball. Taylor Packer says, Tori, you told us not to get our hopes up based on 2 games, and I didn't listen. I mean, I tried to help you out, but 2 games is not going to turn this around. Like, I don't know how much of this is mental, how much of this is his form, how much of this is, little tweaks he needs to make to his form, whatever. But it just has not been good. I mean, the dude's shooting 27% from 3 right now, and we criticize Scoot for his shooting. He's shooting, 31%, somewhere in there. I mean, Chris Murray was not supposed to be a worse shooter than Scoot Henderson this year. He was not supposed to struggle this bad from behind the 3-point line, and I don't really know if it's just he's not that good of a shooter, or if it's between the ears, or if it's maybe just 1 or 2 tweaks he needs to make with how he shoots the ball, because he's shooting, even with that hot shooting streak, he's still only shooting 29% for the month of March. And like I said, he needs just a month, at least a couple weeks, but preferably just a month-long stretch where he shoots the ball at like 36, 37%. Okay? Start with that, and then hopefully he gets to that for a season. The problem is he has not, the only month he shot above 30% from 3 in, Eric, is December, and that's because he only had 3 games he played in where he shot a 3. So, super small sample. So he's just been consistently bad. And that's why you need more than 2 games of him shooting the ball well to get your hopes up at all with his shooting. And it's the same thing that I said with Nasir Little, right? Nasir Little had like longer hot shooting stretches, but then longer slumps. And he shot the 3 ball, 36-37% last year? You look at what he's gone on to do this year in Phoenix, and he has struggled shooting the ball, although he hasn't played that much, hasn't really been able to get a rhythm, etc., right? There could be reasons for that. With a guy like Chris, it's hard to analyze where a rookie's shooting necessarily is, especially a guy like Chris, because he was looked at as a shooter coming into the league, but he just hasn't been, and it's a little bit baffling to try and figure out. Now, he only shot, 33.5% from 3 in college? It could be he's just not a good shooter. But obviously going to give him time. He has this summer to get shots up, get reps up, figure out his shot, and hopefully he can come back next year hitting threes. It's just a little disappointing for him to follow a back-to-back 3 and 6 nights with a 1 and 6 and 0 for 6.
Right. And it's kind of overshadowing some of the good things he's doing, like JP Savvy mentioned in chat, he actually defended Jalen Green decently a couple times when he got switched on him. He's playing some really solid defense overall. Feel like he's making pretty good reads and decisions other than the shooting struggles. So, but the shooting struggles ultimately just kind of overshadow everything. But no turnovers tonight. 6 rebounds. So other than the 2 for 11, you could say he was okay. But when you go 2 for 11, the other things don't really matter.
Yep.
Or matter as much, I should say.
Yeah. I don't really know what else to say about his shooting. Like, the thing I'm struggling with, and the thing I'm thinking about right now, because Bouquet had a comment that said, he may have shot 36%, but I absolutely never trusted Little to shoot the 3. How well does Chris Murray have to shoot to get consistently respected by the defense and for his own team, his own coaching staff, his own fan base to be able to trust him to shoot the 3 ball well enough that it's a good shot? Like, does it take 2 weeks of shooting the ball well? Does it take a month of shooting the ball well? Does it take a whole season of shooting the ball well? Because I feel like people trusted him to knock down threes more so at the start of the season than they do now. So I'm just kind of curious what it takes to reverse that. Regardless, rough night for him. Was also 2 for 5 inside the arc. Play some solid defense, rebounds. Gotta figure out that 3-point shot, man. Gotta figure out that 3-point shot. His shooting the rest of the season is one of the things to look for as the Blazers tank their way to most likely the 5th best lottery odds. Anything else you wanted to say on him?
No, I mean, it's all things we've been talking about for weeks now, so just gotta prove it on the court.
Yeah. Honestly, outside of that, there isn't really a ton of, bad. There's players that had okay games where they had some struggles, made some plays, right? Let's talk about Scoot. 6 for 14, 1 for 5 from 3. Has 4 assists, 5 turnovers, and 5 fouls. He's been way too foul prone for a guard. He fouls way too much. Definitely has to clean that up. That and the turnovers. If he was having nights where he's shooting 6 for 14, 1 for 5 from 3, which isn't the most efficient night, with 4 assists, which we know he can fill that stat up a little bit more. We know he can make a little bit more. If he was having mediocre nights like that, but wasn't turning the ball over, wasn't fouling as much, it'd be better. It's just he's been plagued by random games where he is too sloppy with the ball, and he gets in foul trouble way too often this season, and that's something the rest of the year he needs to become more consistently solid in those areas where he's not having games like this where he only plays 25 minutes because he has 5 fouls and still has 5 turnovers.
Right, and I don't know. I feel like his fouls are so avoidable. He just gets way too pushy. He uses his arm way too much, both on offense on drives and on defense. He's just he's a little over aggressive. Forgot who was it last year that we were talking about this all year. I don't remember.
Chat, remind Eric, because I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about someone in the past that was just like super over aggressive on his fouls. But anyways, yeah, just like I don't know, he gets beat and he trips the guy. Like I don't think it was on purpose or anything, but like it just he's so like I don't know what the right word is. He's just like rugged out there. Like he tries to bully people a little bit too much, on both sides of the ball, and he just doesn't have the craftiness yet to do it, and it's just kind of awkward, I think. And so I think he needs to kind of like just focus on keeping your guy in front of you instead of going for steals or trying to steal the ball or anything like that. Just kind of work on the basics of defense first, and then go get a little more aggressive as you get comfortable with that.
Yeah, he needs to focus on being solid, and that's the thing. This coaching staff at the beginning of the season kind of preached being like a physical defense and forcing turnovers and that sort of thing. It's kind of ironic because they play such a passive defensive scheme most of the time. It's drop or zone, but there's some of what they were preaching earlier in the season. I don't know if that's the best thing to preach to a young team because they don't really know how to do that.
Yeah.
And Scoot's a perfect example of that. You can't tell him, like, go out there, be physical, like, get in the ball, like, be a dog, blah, blah, blah. He's going to get a bunch of fouls because you're going up against veteran guards that know how to take advantage of that and pick up fouls on you. So I want Scoot to focus on being solid. Like, when you have a team of young guys, the focus should be doing the basics first, developing consistency within the basics first, and then maybe trying to experiment with, like, okay, try and get into the ball a little bit more, like, let's press a little more. I'm fine with certain guys pressing. I think Kamar does a good job. I think Repair has done an okay job. But for Scoot, he's just too aggressive, a little too physical, doesn't know where that line is between physicality and fouling. And that's something that's just going to take time for him to figure out. I would rather him just focus on being more consistently solid on and especially off the ball. We've talked about some of his off-ball struggles recently defensively. Offensively, he's took a lot of mid-range shots in this game, and it's kind of how Houston played him. There's a couple times they switched Landale onto him, and Scoot's taking mid-range just over the switch because Landale was just sagging so far back to take away the drive. And it's one of those shots where, like, if that's what they're giving to you, I guess, I get it. Still, it's hard to be consistently efficient when you're shooting a bunch of 17-footers. Like, not everybody is DeAndre Ayton, unfortunately. If Scoot could hit the mid-range shot at that level, that'd be great. But he did have a couple impressive moments, like the lay-in he had where he drove, pump faked in the paint, and reversed it was a really notable play for me, Eric, because how often do we see him just try and use his speed to beat defenders to the rim, and he ends up out of control, throwing up some crap, or getting blocked even, right? He had a layup in this game, driving left, gets into the paint, pump fakes, 2 defenders jump in the air, and he reverses it. And that little bit of craftiness where he can, like, decelerate in the paint, pump fake, use his pivot, and score around the rim that way is something that he needs to learn. The master of that is Jalen Brunson, right? If he can just learn some of those tricks when he's not able to outright beat defenses to the backboard or the rim with his speed, then he'll have a better time finishing on the interior. The problem is he's basically just throw my body into the defender, and if the defender isn't there, then I'm just going to try and blaze my way to the rim. I think he's playing with more pace on the perimeter, but once he gets going downhill, I don't think he is crafty enough. He doesn't use his left enough. We've talked about that. But I also think there's opportunities for him to actually slow down, use his body, use his steps. We saw him do that a little bit last game against the Nuggets. He had that really impressive baseline finish at the end of the game where he kind of slowed down and hung back and got a layup. And I think as he continues to learn little tricks to get layups off on the interior that he can go to, he'll be more in control. And that drive was impressive because he got going pretty quickly on the drive, decelerated, stopped, pump fake. Might have traveled, but in the NBA they're really not going to call that. So that was an impressive move that I thought was notable because that's something I'm looking for from him.
You're talking about the one where he put on the brakes, right?
Yeah, first quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he had. I like that one. The one before that, where he actually dribbled to the left side of the basket, but shot with his right hand. I thought that was a good move as well. Nice finish. The other one where in the second half where he just kind of threw it up from in front of the rim, I felt like that was kind of more of a lucky shot than necessarily him finishing well or whatever. But the other ones were pretty good. But like you said, I feel like he settled a little bit for the mid range, but that's what they were giving him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This isn't Scoot's fault or anything, but with the lineup we're throwing out there right now, I feel like I want so much more from Scoot, just to see more from him, facilitate a little bit more, run the offense a little bit more, just command the game a little bit more. And unfortunately, he's just not there yet. Hopefully, he can get there soon. This would be such a cool time to watch him start to blossom and stuff right now, instead of just kind of continuing his kind of okay season,
Yeah, I just think a game like this is tough because they were clearly just trying to pack the paint and swarm him every time he got into it. And I mean, the way to make him pay is just consistently hit jumpers. And today his jumper wasn't really on. He hit a couple mid-range, but 1 for 5 from 3, right? That's where, even good shooters will have games where they shoot poorly and miss some open threes, right?
Yeah.
It's just getting that floor, that shooting floor up, so that it's not happening 3 out of 4 games where defenses, when they scout you, can look at it like, oh, we can play this guy this way because he rarely makes teams pay.
Yeah.
That's just where he has to continue to become a more consistent three-point shooter, make teams pay, and then make teams second-guess about guarding him that way, because in a game like this where they're just packing the paint and giving him that space, he kind of just has to shoot those jump shots. Or he just gets rid of the ball and doesn't do anything. This really is only 2 options, unless he can, find a seam in transition or something like that. So I don't really have a... this game didn't really leave me necessarily wanting more in terms of him producing. He was 6 for 14, decently efficient, 1 for 5 from 3. He was 5 for 5 for 9 inside the arc. That's above 50%. I feel like 2-point percentage is a key stat to look for, considering how badly he shot from 2 this year and how badly he's finished. So I'll take that and hope that the shooting can continue to improve.
I just look at who we're throwing out there, and I just want him to be I don't know, have some good games. We're getting into that. Well, we are actually into that range where this is where we started seeing Sharp last year, take off. And so I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I was just, when you see, Blazers starting 5 rookies and all that kind of stuff, I was just hoping to see some really good games to build on here at the end of the season. He still has 11 games to have some of those, so hopefully they're still to come. But going into next year, this is exactly how I think most teams are going to play him until he proves otherwise. And so he's going to have to look at games like this summer and really work on how he can take advantage of his skill set if the defense is just playing off him that much and giving him those mid-range shots.
Yep. Other players to talk about: Kamar, 4 for 9, 1 for 3 from 3, had 2 steals, 2 blocks, had 4 turnovers though with no assists. You don't like to see that turnover number.
Yeah, it was kind of a ball stopper tonight, I thought.
Yeah, a little weird.
He usually isn't, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then turnover. You don't like to see the turnovers out of your role players,
Yeah, he did get 3 offensive rebounds, which I love his offensive rebounding right now. He's a legitimate threat on the offensive glass. He's been Go ahead.
But I mean, Chris Murray led our rebounding with 6. Like our starting lineup especially was not good on the boards.
Yeah, we've talked about it with Doo-Wop and
Right.
as far as Kamar goes, like there's just times he shoots with his right, when he should be shooting with his left, which is kind of weird because he's a lefty. There's times where he goes up with his right on the interior. You know, he missed a shot early against Dylan Brooks. He goes up with his right hand on the left side of the basket. Dylan Brooks was on his right. But he had some impressive finishes in this game, especially in the first half. Like, you're seeing the ability to finish the ball. Like, it gives me hope that he can be a guy that can attack seams. You know, he's never going to be a one-on-one guy, but you look at the way Maurice Harkless used to play, he could finish around the rim, and if he had a lane, he'd take it and go and finish strong and would cut, and it was just a really good glue guy in that regard because of obviously what he did defensively, but then he was able to make teams pay for maybe not paying attention to him because their attention was turned towards Dame. And Kamar is a guy that I think will be able to do that. You know, I think he's a better finisher when he's not going directly at a defender, because he tends to slow down a little bit, like try and contort too much. When he's able to just get a head of steam towards the rim and attack like a last line of a defense, I think he's a little better. But really like to see him finishing some of these layups that I feel like he was missing earlier in the year.
Yeah, I'd like to see him more in the open court too. I feel like a lot of his possessions lately have just been where he catches the ball in like the corner or on the perimeter and he has to kind of create. Whereas I'd like to see him just get more rebounds on the defensive end and just go and kind of lead a fast break and see if he can maneuver the defense that way.
Yep. Banton, 11 for 29, or 11 for 21. This was kind of a backwards game from him in terms of shooting because he goes 2 for 9 behind the three-point line, but goes 9 for 12 inside the arc.
Yeah.
Also had 5 assists, which is okay. 3 turnovers, 5 assists, like that's okay, given that he had an efficient night.
I don't know if you felt this way in the first half. The second half was kind of the opposite, but I felt like everyone, including Banton, was like the emphasis this game was to get into the paint and kick out to shooters because I felt like almost everyone who drove was looking to pass this game first before they shot. That was cool to see. Led to some pretty good moments in the first half where we pushed the tempo, we were getting into the paint and making the right passes. We weren't forcing a lot of bad shots. And then, the second half, we just kind of started forcing it again. And but Band in particular, I thought was like looking to pass a little more in the first half at least.
Yeah, that's obviously the key for him, and just being more picky with some of the shots he shoots on the interior. Like, he took better layups and better driving opportunities in this game. There was a couple shots he had to shoot, kind of fighting the shot clock that he missed, but Houston didn't do a good job guarding him. He was able to get to the rim multiple times in this game. But it was also like the paint, they didn't pack the paint as much on his drives.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it, and he kind of...
Well, if he starts to get respected as a three-point shooter...
Yeah. Like, I'm struggling with this because I don't know how much credit to give him and how much criticism to give Houston in the way they defended him, because they let him walk to the rim multiple times in this game without much help.
I mean, maybe that it's as simple as he had been hot from three since coming to Portland, so you want to run him off the three-point line, and he hadn't been as good finishing. So maybe that was their game plan, which I don't think is a bad game plan going into the game. Once he starts making something, you might want to adjust a little bit, but by then they had a big lead. So
yeah, for sure. I really don't like his mid-range jumper. I feel like he's one of those guys that can maybe pull up from three, but won't be a pull-up mid-range guy.
Yeah, a two-level scorer, not a three.
Yeah, which is fine. Like, if you're going to score from two levels, the best two levels to score from are the rim and the three. He just, I don't know. Like, he has a low set point and kind of shoots the ball when he's leaving the floor, right? So it's it's hard for him to hit mid-range jumpers with the way he shoots the ball because it's hard to get proper touch on him. It's a little easier with that lower set point from 3 when you can extend all the way. And you can tell on some of his mid-range shots, he's kind of just like flicking it up there in a weird way. And that's where, like, I would like to see him raise his set point on mid-range shots. You look at the way that some of the best mid-range shooters in the league shoot the mid-range shots differently than they shoot threes. Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, they just hold the ball higher so that you can extend all the way without shooting it long. And I feel like with his height, if he could just learn how to get to that 10 to 15 feet range and like rise up into a jumper that's, you know, above the defense, that could be a very viable shot for him, because I feel like a lot of times he might have that opportunity and he ends up driving, trying to create contact and contorting and shooting some shot that's easier to block from a help side defender and wouldn't have as good of a likelihood at going in as if he mastered that 10 to 15 foot mid-range jumper, maybe extended out to 17 feet even. And that's something for him to work on, because I do think that could keep defenses honest for like packing the paint but being towards the rim after they run him off the 3-point line. And a lot of the big high level scoring wings and forwards are able to hit that shot. So something for him to work on for sure.
Yeah. He doesn't have the gravity yet that like Anthony has, obviously. I don't know if you saw this today, but B-Ball Index had the top on-ball gravity players that get the most total amount of defensive coverage.
Yeah.
And Anthony Simons was 6th on the list.
But he should be a 6th man.
And the people ahead of him were Luka, Dame, Steph, Booker, and Brunson.
Yeah. That's why the Ant conversation drives me crazy this year, because he draws a ton of attention. He's averaging 5.5 assists per game. He's gotten better as a passer despite not having much talent around him. He's been decently efficient. He's still shooting good from 3 on like insanely tough 3-point shots that he has to take, given that the offense is run through him to take those shots. And he has insane gravity. Like, when he plays, the looks get much easier for his teammates, even if it's not a Simons assist. And people sit here and say, see, he needs to be a bench player. Crazy to me. Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is just, like, I want to see him with, like, better players or a better team as that guy, you know? Because if he's as good as those guys at drawing attention, if you have... Like, Dame has Giannis, who's also just behind, a few spots behind Anthony. Like, if you have, or like Brunson has Julius Randle, who's been hurt, and that's why teams have been able to focus on Brunson a little more. He's still playing really well, but he's also a few years older than Anthony, so he has a little more experience. But yeah, like, I don't know, just you watch the game tonight and you see guys like Banton and Scoot and the way they're guarded, and it's just nothing like Anthony. And those guys should be able to eventually start taking advantage of that and have to shift some of the attention that's given to Anthony when he plays onto those guys. But right now, I don't think there's anyone on our team that the defense really respects a ton. To do anything other than just play a basic defense against our rookie lineup or whatever.
Yeah. Repair has a good shooting night. He goes 3 for 4 from the 3-point line. His one did go 0 for 4 inside the arc. He needs to maybe resort to a floater a little bit more, especially with that long wingspan. First play of the game, or first shot of the game, got blocked by Landale on a play where he got a handoff, turned the corner, and had like a low 8-foot floater there that he could have rose up for, and instead tried to Euro step and go into him. I think, you know, a key for him, as I've said, he has finishing touch, but he needs to learn what to do in certain finishing situations. And he got blocked first 2 plays, actually, watching it back. First 2 plays, he got blocked where he had an 8-foot floater that he could have gotten off and did a Euro step in a situation where he shouldn't have been doing a Euro step because the defender was sitting on it.
Yeah.
You only want to do a Euro step is if you have a lane one way, but the defender is shifting into that lane, because then you use your momentum against them. You don't want a Euro step if the defender is at a standstill sitting on that Euro step. So that's just where, the 3-point shooting was nice tonight, and then some of the finishing stuff are things that I think we'll start to figure out and get a better feel for the more reps he gets the rest of the season, and then after he has an off season to work on it.
Yeah, for sure. I just like that he's getting these minutes right now. Even if they're not pretty or whatever, I felt like tonight he had some good moments, but he also had some teachable moments as well.
Yeah. He did airball a 12-foot mid-range, too, which was not pretty. He's another one of those guys kind of like Banton. I don't know if he'll ever be a good mid-range shooter, but, man, he has a 7'2" or 7'3". He has a crazy wingspan. On that pull-up, just run into a floater. If he's within 15 feet going towards the rim, I want him shooting a floater, just a one-leg runner. Mm-hmm. Master that shot, and he will be lethal driving to the rim.
Yeah.
Lethal. Because then defenders will worry about it, defenders will bite on it, and then if they're leaning forward, maybe leaning to the side, then maybe those Euro steps are getting by the defense. So it was cool seeing him hit back-to-back threes, though. He seems to be a rhythm shooter.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of feeds off if he hits his first one.
Yeah. It sucks seeing him airball the next one, but 3 for 4 from 3. I mean, good shooting night. I wish other forwards on this team could have more shooting nights like that. Let's see. Duop kind of absent in this game. 3 for 8. Jabari 3 for 6. Misses only 3. Played 25 minutes. Had 7 points. Don't really have much to say about him. Ashton Higgins was 4 for 8. Had 4 boards, 3 assists. He looks like he could maybe be a third-string point guard in the NBA. Probably that caliber. Definitely fringe roster spot guy, but he's come in and hasn't looked like he doesn't belong on an NBA court.
Yeah, if you could just shoot threes. Yeah. I know we say that about a lot of players, but with guards especially, smaller guards, if you can't hit a three, he just flat out refuses to shoot them most of the time. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is, I don't know, he has some impressive finishes for his size. He likes to say something every time he scores, which is kind of funny.
A little bit of an edge to him, yeah.
Yeah. And I like his effort on defense. But right now, I think he's just getting by on effort and hustle, which is good that he's playing hard. You can always count on him to come in and leave it on the court. And we do need guys like that. But, yeah, I don't know if it's going to be for this team or not. But, yeah, I think he's also a fringe kind of roster spot player.
Yeah. I do think he'll be back on a two-way next year. That's my guess right now. I really have nothing else to say from this game, to be honest with you. Is there anything else you want to get into?
What was with I don't know if you watched the final second, but we're down 18, right? And Banton was calling for the ball. We had a side out 3 seconds because they let the shot clock expire. And he shoots this weird runner at the buzzer. What was the point of that?
He wanted his 30-point game.
Yeah, did he?
I mean, he had 28.
I told you he's stat hunting to try and get a contract next year.
He really is, bro. He really is. It's starting to drive me a little bit crazy.
Did you see it?
Whatever. I was actually listening to the radio at the very end, and I heard Demers basically say I think, or maybe it was Michael Holton say, I don't know what that was, but I think he wanted his 30-point game. So even they noticed it.
It was a weird runner. It was why are you ruining your shoot?
I watched it back when I was clicking through his shots. He wants his numbers, man. He wants his numbers. He wanted his 30-point double-double. So
Yeah.
it's funny how we're bringing him off the bench and starting repair, and like he plays 39 minutes. Kind of funny.
I think we're trying to have the we're starting all 5 rookies. What are we supposed to do? Excuse, you know.
We really are. We really are. Like
there's no other way to explain.
I know. It's crazy. Like I'm not complaining at all. Starting repair, definitely not. I just think it's kind of funny how like Banton was starting earlier and now he's not, and he's still playing 39 minutes a game though. So his minutes are a little weird, and man, this game fun for the first 2.5 quarters and then got boring. Like I don't really got anything to say, unfortunately.
Beast Girl has a good point. Scoop being in foul trouble probably led to him playing more minutes than
definitely
he probably would. Yeah.
Definitely.
John F says he had a prop bet.
Yeah.
On over 28.5 or something.
At least it would have been an over instead of an under.
Yeah.
So Jonte Porter's probably going to get banned for life. Right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess there's a chance. It's just a coincidence twice, but it's looking pretty bad.
I mean, he's already a fringe NBA guy. What team is going to want to sign him if he's like purposely faking injuries because he has like family members betting his unders?
Okay. Well, let's just in case, because like Kyle Wilson said, what did I miss? So Jonte Porter today, it came out he's being investigated by the NBA because DraftKings noticed some irregularities in some prop bets for him, and both times there was an irregularity. Jonte left the game after only a few minutes of playing, and the prop bet of the unders hit both times, and it was the biggest payout those particular nights for any bet on their website. So, like, random people aren't just, there's not like on a random NBA night, the biggest bet is never going to be on Jonte Porter's under, you know? Like, that's just really weird. So, he had an eye injury, came back, had played a couple games, and then won it the first time, then said his eye was bugging him again, and he never came back in the game after like 4 minutes or something. And then the next time it happened, the second time, I guess he just said he wasn't feeling well or something, then didn't go back in the game. So just really suspicious. I don't know how you can prove it necessarily, but, you know, if you're connecting the dots, it's pretty obvious. I think that I don't know if he personally bet on him or whatever, but definitely some sort of connection to why he would do that.
Yeah.
And they got to make an example out of him with how these leagues are all going. I mean, the NBA just announced a partnership with, they're going to list like betting odds and stuff during games and stuff on NBA games, and so you can't let the integrity of the game be jeopardized. So if it's just like an outlier incident, you gotta make an example of him so that future people don't start doing this stuff as well.
Yeah, because you can't bet on your own game. Like, it's one thing if you're out and betting on other NFL games, but even Calvin Ridley got banned for a year for that. But if you're betting on your own game, so you're participating in, or like telling people to bet this and then, you know, faking injuries to help them make money, that's just not it, man. That's bad. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. I would not be shocked if he's banned for life, if they Pete Rose him.
Yeah, especially if you're betting on yourself to do bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if you bet on your over and you're like trying to score, like let's just say Banton was trying to hit an over with that 3-point shot, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because at least you're trying to. I mean, it's still bad, but like it's not as bad. But like if you bet on your team to lose, or for you to get like less than your whatever your prop number is, then you're obviously trying to tank a game on purpose, and that's really bad.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I know he's on a 2-way contract, so like, I mean, he's not like set up for life or anything with money yet, but like, how dumb do you have to be in the NBA and
You achieved your
potentially do
dream.
this? Yeah.
Yeah, you achieved your dream, and then you're gonna jeopardize it for what? Like, that's crazy.
There's no way, because there's two things. Like, either you probably get away with it doing small amounts of money, right? Like, if it's not like I said, the biggest bet of the night on DraftKings, but it's not like you're not getting that much money out of it if you're doing it that way. But in order to make it worth what he's risking, you have to bet like a certain amount of money, or the people betting for you have to risk a certain amount of money, and that type of money on a player like Jonte Porter is always going to raise red flags. So you're dumb if you think you're going to get away with it and you're going to be profitable with it, because you either aren't going to be profitable enough to make it worth the risk, or the risk is like just stupid because you're going to get caught. I don't understand.
Yeah, it's not particularly smart, so I don't get it.
And his brother's rich. He's on a max contract, right?
Yeah, his brother ain't taking care of him at all, huh? I mean,
You could be like, hey man, I might have to resort to betting on the unders on myself. Can I get a few $1,000,000 or something? Jeez.
yeah, just wild stuff, man. Now he's Jonte Porter trash can. Because Michael Porter trash can has been a running joke. I don't even remember how that started. I just don't like Michael Porter Jr. And now I guess I have to hate on Jonte Porter. And they have a third brother. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's like a big transfer portal guy this offseason for college ball.
The Javon.
Yeah, Javon Porter. So
Yeah.
what a family.
He's still in college. He's the only one that used all those. It's mostly running out this year. I think there might be a couple of guys that will be even older next year, but getting that free COVID year is really making it weird with all the ages of some of these super seniors and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. You got Kuznar, who's like 25 playing, and how long did he play?
Well, I think he got hurt or something.
Yeah.
I think he tore his ACL at Texas A&M, or not Texas A&M. Who did they beat? South Carolina.
Yeah.
So I think he had like a medical one, and then the COVID year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think. Yeah, like I said, maybe a little bit next year, but 2 years from now, that'll all go back to normal, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to have a lot of seniors, I guess, this year and next year. So, anyway, let's do Tankathon. I'm looking forward to this.
Kyle Wilson asked if we talked about the Blazers' hardwood being destroyed. Troy made a joke about it on the podcast earlier.
I don't even remember what I said.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was earlier, but I laughed.
Good. As long as you laugh, I'm happy with my jokes. Yeah. Speaking about being happy, I'm happy about this.
Yeah, let's go. Big Tankathon night.
Yeah, Golden State half game up on Houston. Golden State plays, let's see here. Golden State plays tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. They're on the road against the Miami Heat. They are 2.5-point road favorites. And then the Rockets on Wednesday play on the road versus the Thunder. The Warriors play on the road versus the Magic. And then we have a post-game stream that night. We got another early tip-off time. I hate it.
These Eastern Conference
road trips, like, I just don't like doing streams until like 9:30. To be honest, I know you like doing them a little earlier because you gotta go to bed earlier than I do, but I do not like having to start paying attention to a game at like 4:30 in the afternoon, and it's like a whole 4 hour thing with the postgame show, all that. So the Eastern Conference road trips take a little bit of a toll on me, just like they would the team. I always like the later streams.
Mm-hmm. Tyler James asked, do we know when the measurements are taken for pre-draft? The combine this year is May 13th through the 19th, the week after the draft lottery on May 12th. And so we'll know all the measurements, or we should have an idea of most of the measurements by then.
Yep, and then we'll do our big boards next post-game stream on Wednesday.
Yeah, nice. I'll make sure I update mine.
I need Fanspo to add Tyon Grant Foster. Eric.
Yeah. Yeah.
My guy. TGF. He's still not on there. I even tagged them. I'm going to have him like late first, probably.
They have a lot of missing guys.
Yeah. Who else are they missing that you...
I don't know. You just scroll, because I keep scrolling through for players that aren't on my big board, and I'm just like, where is everyone?
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely missing some guys. I'm at the point where, like, a lot of guys is just, like, me thinking about them more and moving them accordingly. Jared McCain impressed me. I mean, Jared McCain, I'm moving him on my board. The problem is he's a small shooting guard, but on the right team, like, that's fine. On the wrong team, it's a problem, maybe. But I'm just going to move him on my board because I think on a team that has a bigger playmaker that he can fit next to as, like, an off guard, it's fine.
Yeah.
So... certain things like that is stuff that I'm thinking about in terms of, like, how I rank guys right now. But, yeah. Anyway, Tankathon. Time. Let's do this thing. Blazers still 5th, of course. They are a game and a half because they're losing every game, but so is Charlotte, unfortunately. Wish Charlotte could win a game, Eric.
Yeah.
We do face Charlotte on this road trip, though.
Yep.
In about a week. Following Wednesday, so.
San Antonio beat Phoenix without Wemby.
I know. Dude, I'm screwed in picks. I don't even want to think about other games.
Phoenix,
I'm sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, how did Phoenix...
That's a bad loss
game,
with the fully healthy roster, pretty much.
Yeah. That's real bad. How do you only score 102 against that team without Wemby? They're a bad defense even with him. So I don't get that. That makes no sense. 14 Pelicans, 13 Portland, 12 OKC, 11 Chicago, 10 Atlanta, 9 Utah, 8 Houston, 7 is Memphis, 6 is Washington moving down 4 spots. Which means there's 4 teams celebrating.
Portland, Toronto,
Charlotte, and San Antonio.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm slightly showing the next one, but you already know. You already know it's
Detroit's
Detroit.
got to be 5th.
Yup, good old Detroit getting screwed. It's tradition. At 4 is San Antonio. At 3 is your Portland Trailblazers again. No! At 2 is Toronto, and at 1 is Charlotte. We're always 3rd. Toronto's always top 4. That's basically the running theme at this point.
Yep.
Who do you think is a Charlotte type player at the top though? That's kind of confusing. I don't know. They could go for. I could see them going Sar though. I don't know how this would play out. Is probably Sar and Ricochet 1 and 2 in some order, right?
Yeah, because I don't think any of the guards will come into play based on them passing on Scoot last year. Although they do have different ownership now. Yeah, I think they maybe look for the best forward to pair with Brandon Miller.
Yeah. I could see.
Should hopefully get Mark Williams healthy at some point.
I could see Sar and Ricochet becoming consensus top 2, and then the draft would really start at 3 with Portland. I mean, you don't need Topic, so what happens there, that would be really interesting to see. Or I could see, I mean, maybe this is too much of my own projection and projecting my opinion on Ricochet, but I feel like there's a chance he could fall to like 7, 8, 9. I just don't think he's good enough to be a consensus top 2 pick, but everything I've heard is the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So, who knows?
I could see, yeah, I agree with Tommy. I could see Charlotte being a Holland team.
Number 1?
Yeah, or Bazelis. I don't know.
Yeah, I could.
Because, like, if you think Brandon Miller is the shooter or whatever, but you think some of the playmaking skills Holland could develop, I don't know. I think they'd be a good combination.
It's just tough to think about this draft at the top because, like, I feel like at this time we always form some sort of consensus, like, top 2, 3.
Mm.
And that's kind of like what I'm doing, not even, like, purposefully. It just kind of feels like it's Sar and Ricochet based on what I've heard, and, like, with Sar, I just think it's logical. But I guess there would be a chance that those guys aren't good enough for Charlotte, and they would rather just go with a Ron Holland because of fit, or a Buzelis because the upside of a 6'10" ball handling forward. And that's really where it's just weird to even project the draft at this point with some of these sims. Is like, I don't know how that plays out at all. This draft is super fascinating for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think 12-13, there is a decent chance that Salon could be there, Eric. And I'd be pretty happy with Salon at 12 if that Warriors pick moves up. This pick up here, I have no idea, obviously where it's going to be, but then also who we'd like, so.
Yeah, I saw a mock draft that we got Klingon at 13 today. And Filipowski at 14.
We don't need to go. We don't need to go role playing big man with that pick.
So this ties into Jonathan Evers' question with Klingon's play recently. Would you be comfortable taking him with the Warriors pick, assuming the 11 to 12 guys in your top tier are all off the board?
I don't think it's terrible value wise. Tankathon also has Klingon at 13. I don't think it's terrible value-wise. I just think when you have Ayton, you have Robert Williams, and you have Duop Reith, if you're going to go for a center, you better go for one with upside. Klingon's just going to be a role-playing center who could be a game changer. It's just like a game changer defensively, but is that really worth it compared to a swing at upside?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that pick, given the Blazers' situation, roster-wise. Like, if Salon's there, you take him 100 times out of 100 over Klingon.
Yeah, Salon, I think, went like 11th or something. Now, that might be much more so, obviously, than going like 2 or 3 in this case to 1 to get Sar. If Salon falls to like 10 or 11, maybe we can use some of our second rounders or a player or something to get up into that 10-11 range and make sure we get him.
I think there's a legitimate chance that his stock doesn't rise enough, especially given how he shot the ball lately, where him being at 10 or 11 is looked at as a fall or looked at as his floor. Like, I feel like most of the time when teams trade up from 13 to 10 or 11, right, it's because there's a prospect there that you don't expect to fall any longer.
Well,
like a Cason Wallace with OKC last year.
Yeah, well, see, my thinking is if he measures well and has good workouts, I think that's going to be a guy that people are going to be trying to keep secretly, like in that 6 to 10 range, like.
Yeah, there's a possibility where it could be that based on if he measures well and works out well. But I do think there's also a legitimate possibility that it doesn't play out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where would Portland trade up for a guy if that's not his floor? Because I feel like most of the times when you see teams do those little trades up late lottery, it's always for a guy that consensus doesn't have falling any longer.
Isn't he the youngest out of all those guys though? Like that also could play into it with a lot of older guys there.
Yeah, I mean if that's where his floor and like consensus has come around to, based on reports, like, oh, he's working out well, measured well. So then consensus would probably be like, okay, if he's there at 10 or 11, there's a drop off between him and following players, like he's probably not going to fall much more. That's when you'd see that trade up. I feel like that's when we've seen that trade up in the past. I'm not 100% confident it's going to play out that way. So that's where it gets interesting, is if he is there and consensus hasn't arrived to that, is that something that would still play out where Portland would look to trade out for him? Because Portland would have to really like him. Or is it something where it's like, okay, you got him, you got, maybe they like Klingon, maybe Castle's on the board, whatever, and it's like, oh, we'll just take one, we'll just wait at 13.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting about him, is I don't exactly know where his consensus is going to land, because right now I think there's still a decent chance that he could fall all the way to 13. I think he has to have good workouts and measure well to get that consensus floor higher than 13.
Both John F. and Jonathan Evers both mentioned that they think we're trading the Warriors pick anyway. That's something that I continue to hear as well, that they're not even planning on keeping it. But I keep saying that's dumb. Like, why would you have that plan now?
I mean, but who are you planning? Like,
you know what I mean? Like,
what is your plan for it? People say, oh, they don't plan on keeping it, and then if they keep it, be like, well, I never said they weren't trading it. Okay, expand upon it. Okay, if they're not planning on keeping it, what are they planning on doing with it? But nobody expands on it.
Well, I just think, I've expanded on it. They want player, not picks, and I think they're going to use that to attach to someone.
But it has to. Yeah, but it has to be the right player. Like, you can sit here and say,
right,
we'd love to trade the Warriors pick for a player. Okay, well, who?
But what I'm saying is this is the kind of dumb plans our front office has. Like, they're just like, oh, well, we're going to be attaching this player to pick to a player and going after someone. And Cronin so far has not shown the ability to get those kind of deals done easily. I feel like it's just like, why would you be thinking of that as your plan right now? Like, you don't even know where it's going to land or who's going to be available or whatever. Like, I don't know. It just seems really weird.
They seem to not know exactly what they want to do this offseason.
I think they know what they want to do. It's just they're not going to be able to do what they want to do.
They know the type of move they want to make.
Yeah. It's the same move they've wanted to make for years. Yeah, it's stupid.
They know what type of move they want to make. But you heard Cronin on trade deadline day, right? Like, liking the team, blah, 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 but also doesn't want to short-circuit the rebuild. And I've heard literally both sides of that. And it's a bit confusing because short-circuiting the rebuild, what does that look like? Does that look like trading the 3rd pick, the future unprotected first? Or could that possibly mean trading the 13th pick? I don't think the 13th pick is valuable enough to them to view it as trading it being a short-circuiting of the rebuild. It's just we for years it's, well, somebody has to be available that's worth it, and I don't trust them to actually find somebody that it makes sense to do like 13 in Brogdon for. I think if it's going to be somebody that they want, because they don't need more mediocre role players, right? If it's most of the time, you're either trading like super high draft picks or multiple picks for a star caliber player, or you're trading later first for role players. I can't remember the last trade where it was like a pick between 10 and 14 for a player. Can you think of one, Eric?
I mean, I'm sure I can think of one off the top of my head, or I could think of one if I wasn't off the top of my head, but yeah. See, there's 2 things at play here. One is just to touch on what you said about what Cronin said at the press conference. What they deem as taking that step back or short-circuiting the rebuild is trading vets like Grant and Brogdon, Matisse for picks, and just future picks or whatever. They think that's taking a step back. Whereas there's other, I mean, we know that's dumb, but like, what about our trade? We traded 16 and a future first for Rocco.
Yeah.
It's not quite 13, but that's...
But, maybe a little better draft. So, but that makes so little sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Eric, I don't think they want to trade the 13th pick for a Robert Covington type of player.
But here's what, this has been the problem under Cronin. He only goes after perfect, like, it's got to be perfect trades. Like the Jeremy Grant trade was a perfect trade because we have a trade exception. We only give up a first at what didn't seem to have a lot of value around the league. So like that's a perfect trade for him. You get him on an expiring contract to where if it doesn't work out, you have an out and don't have to pay him. You like McHale, we've talked about before. OG, same way. Last couple of years, those guys were on 2 of the best contracts in the NBA, right? But they didn't want to trade for someone. They didn't want to trade for. I'm trying to think of an example of someone. I know Ben Simmons was before that, but like those max contract type players, short of. I mean, obviously Ayton is on a max contract, but that was more just because they needed salary in the Dame trade or whatever. But the 13th pick, see, this is how they think, and it's completely dumb. I'm not saying they should think this way or it's okay or whatever, but so they're thinking, how like I said last year with the 3rd pick and Scoot, they didn't want to trade the 3rd pick because they were scared he would become a star, and they would be the ones that were known as, oh, you're the guys who traded Scoot Henderson, right? So they don't want to trade their own pick because of that same situation. I mean, maybe if it falls to 7 or 8 or something in this draft, it's a different story. But if it's like top 5 or whatever, I think that they'll have the same mindset. Like, we can't trade the pick in our situation because one of these, we could get a really good player. But they're looking at the 13th pick like, oh, well, that's usually not a pick where people like blame you for trading or care if someone becomes a star later on, because lots of teams passed on those players. So they're thinking like, oh, so we could easily move this pick and attach it to one of our players and hopefully go after someone. But the problem is that perfect trade is likely not going to exist. Like you said, it's very rare for that to work out perfectly, especially for a player that's a difference maker or whatever. So like they're kind of stuck in this mode where they kind of devalue some of their assets and then overvalue some of their other ones, and they just get in this weird situation where it's really hard to find the right trade in those scenarios.
Yeah. So my whole thing is I think they might have their sights set a little too high with what they could get back for that pick. And we've seen them, in previous years be like, oh, well, there's nothing worth trading it for, right? It always falls back to, like, inactivity. So they could definitely just draft with the pick because they default back to inactivity. I think...
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, in this case, part of what could be in play is, right now, it's like, they want to trade the 13th pick for a player. So everybody's talking about, yeah, they're probably not keeping the pick. But what is that player? Every name that I've ever heard that they are interested in is always pretty damn unrealistic. Or it's pretty damn mid.
Yeah.
It's either very unrealistic, it's like Franz Wagner, or Jonas, or, you know what I mean? Like, just...
Mikhail, yeah.
Or it's Matisse Thybulle, Jared Vanderbilt, like, type of guys. GP2. You're not trading the 13th pick for any of those types of guys, right? And you're not getting, like, maybe you could attach 13 to Anthony Simons to get Franz Wagner, but is that really a great trade for Portland? Like, it's okay, I'd consider it. But is Orlando doing that? Probably not. Why would Orlando do that? It's harder to find a... Go ahead.
Right. I was just going to say, I don't think they're even going to explore trading Anthony, but...
I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's 100% true, but I do think he's back in a Blazer uniform next year. The problem is with that type of trade, Eric, it's easier to find an Anthony than it is a Franz Wagner. Mm-hmm. Even if Anthony is a little bit better than Franz Wagner, if you wanted to make that case, sure, fine. But that doesn't mean that Orlando should want to give up Franz Wagner for Anthony just because Anthony's a little better, because it's a bit easier to find a scoring guard in today's NBA than it is to find a forward that can do the things that Franz Wagner does. So Wagner, by default, is more valuable to a team, in my opinion, because it's harder to find that. And that's where those types of trades, like, yeah, of course they would want to trade for a guy like a Franz Wagner, or of course they'd want to trade for a forward that can do things, but it's not exactly realistic. So when it comes down to the 13th pick, what are the possible outcomes of this? Obviously, one is they just draft somebody with it, which I think is a more viable outcome than people believe right now, okay? The other outcomes are they trade it for, like, future draft capital, or, like, trade it down the line, right, where they trade 13 and maybe get a future first and a second round pick in, like, 2026 from another team, where they just kick the can down the road because they can't find what they like. I think that's possible, okay? The other two scenarios are they trade it for somebody that's probably not worth trading that pick for, like a Dorian Finney-Smith, who hasn't been all that good this year and makes no sense in a rebuild. You were going to say something?
I heard a name today. Very familiar name. Same team. Yeah.
Cam Johnson.
Yep. Which also, I think the 13th pick at this point is an overpay as well, considering his contract now and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you're talking about a fat-ass contract.
So 28.
Yeah, I mean, how's he played this year? Let me look up his numbers. I mean, he's a solid role player. Shoots 40% from the three this year still, 45% from the field, like 14 a game.
But in our situation right now, I think we both agree we'd rather swing for a home run at 13 than trade it for someone that we know the ceiling of that doesn't necessarily fit in a full rebuild in 4 years or whatever.
Because that's the problem. Remember the conversation we had, like, okay, this team probably still doesn't have a guy, right? Like Anthony, at best, is a number 2 option on a contending team. Probably better if he's a number 3, obviously. Same thing with Grant. Same thing with, like, the problem is with this team, there's a chance that they run into the problem where they don't have a legitimate star caliber player and they have a bunch of fringe all-stars or, like, second, third options, and they don't have a guy that can lead them. That is extremely possible. So, trading the 13th pick for a player like Cam Johnson, sure, you can look at that and be like, yeah, that's decent value in a vacuum. I wouldn't even argue that. But you're basically trying to go down the path where we just have a bunch of role players and fringe stars. Instead of swinging for the fences and being willing to strike out, but maybe you could get a guy that becomes a legitimate star, because you've seen legitimate stars get drafted in that range all the time. Devin Booker, SGA, Donovan Mitchell, Bam Adebayo. Like, you've seen players become legitimate stars, legitimate key parts of contending teams that have been drafted in that range. So if you're punting on that possibility to get a for sure role player, that doesn't make sense. If they had their future star, like if they had Anthony Edwards, and they had a future number 2 that you could be sure in, right? And then it's like, oh yeah, Sharp just has to be a number 3. Yeah, Scoot just has to be a number 3. Ant just has to be a number 3. Then it'd make more sense to trade the 13th pick for a role player. But that's the problem with the thing in this front office, is that if they're trading the pick, something like that is very, very possible, and it's going that route. The only other scenario is they make a play for a Mikal Bridges type of player by including that pick, but the problem is the Blazers are likely going to overpay in any sort of trade for that caliber of player. Mm-hmm. Knowing Joe Cronin and knowing that there's going to be other teams that really want Mikal.
Well, we talked about this scenario at the trade deadline, but the Rockets, it was reported again today that they offered Jalen Green a multiple first for Mikal at the deadline.
And they said no. So what are you giving up that gets Brooklyn to finally budge off of Mikal Bridges? So
yeah, I mean, the only thing I think of is if the situation's changed, maybe, but
the thing is, if you get Cam Johnson, you're getting another forward that's not like a versatile defender, Eric.
Right, I know. That's why I brought him up.
You're helping your shooting, but you're not helping your defense. And he's not somebody that he's not like a playmaker. So the two things this team needs is versatile defenders that can make a true impact. Well, 3 things they need in a forward. Versatile defender, shooter, and can handle the ball a little bit, pass, like make some reads. Cam Johnson only checks one of those boxes, and that's shooting. This team needs shooting for sure. But you can't trade the lottery pick for a role-playing forward that only checks one box. How are you going to get somebody that checks those other boxes? You already are going to keep Jeremy Grant. You spent a first-round pick on Chris Murray. You have Tamani Kamara at a forward position, right? Shaden Sharp is probably going to have to play some 3. You just gave Matisse Thybulle, a guy who plays some 3, $11 million a year because you matched his contract. So what are you doing trading a 13th pick for Cam Johnson? I saw somebody ask earlier, could it be that the Blazers just have too many young players? The problem is they have too many mediocre role players, especially with young players. Let me just respond to that comment and then the problem isn't having too many young players per se. The problem is having too many young players that project as role players, because that's what Jabari Walker is. That's what Kamara is. Kamara's good. I love Kamara. Okay. That's what Chris Murray is. You need young players with more upside that you can put more stock in becoming true difference makers on hopefully both ends of the court. So if you have too many mediocre young players, that shouldn't mean, okay, we're not going to take a swing on a high upside prospect here at the end of the lottery. That should mean, okay, well, we should probably move off of a couple young players that we don't like. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, to me the young player thing, yeah, we may have too many young players, but my question is the same that like we talked about is repair ready to play. And that's what doesn't matter right now. Like we're not this isn't our set roster. We're not trying to have a complete team that is ready to compete for a championship. We're trying to build towards that. And to me, that's why you take as many chances. And usually that means younger players that either still have some untapped potential or drafted players that are unknowns. And so that's why I would just keep swinging for those kind of things. And if it doesn't work out, like you said, at some point you got to consolidate or get rid of some of those young guys. And maybe once you find a few that are part of your long-term core, then you trade for some of those vet guys that can fill in some of the gaps and the weaknesses of the roster. But until that happens, I don't think it really matters how many young guys we have or how many are playing or whatever. It's a rebuild. Like we're not trying to win this year.
Yeah, Taylor
or we might be, but
yeah. Taylor asked, what guys are you wanting to take with the Warriors pick that might check all those boxes? Just curious. I agree with you. Salon, Jalen Tyson, I think, checks the playmaking box and the shooting box. And being able to create off the dribble a little bit. I think at the bare minimum, he'll be a role player as a connective piece, but he does have some sneaky upside. Keyshawn George, which I'm worried about how inconsistent he was, but he's 20 years old. He can shoot the 3 ball 40% and also can handle the ball, a little bit shifty with the ball, has potential, can make reads, ran a little bit of point guard for Miami, has defensive potential given his tools. He's a guy that could potentially, if you develop him properly, check all 3 boxes. He needs to have a lot of strength, but it makes much more sense to take a chance on that guy who may not ever be as good as Cam Johnson, but could be better because the Blazers are going to need better.
Well, he's a Cam Johnson type player. Like, that's kind of what his role will be a little bit, maybe a little better ball handler. But, so even if he's 90% Cam Johnson, you have him for 4 years on a rookie contract. You didn't have to waste an asset to go get him. And you have him for cheap for 4 years, and then it's a much easier tradable contract as well. So that's, to me, you're getting that. Cam Johnson just turned 28. But yeah, I would much rather take a shot on a Missy or something like that, or even Isaiah Collier. I mean, I know he's a guard, but if he's there at 13, and this is a guy who was the number 1 prospect last year, value wise, you could take chances on that and have maybe a really exciting trade chip down the road. If he turns into a Donovan Mitchell type player, and you have him on your team, and then you have all kinds of trade assets that you can go after to get the young forward that they're really coveting, So yeah, it's just I don't know. There's lots of things you can do there, but even taking Dalton Connect, if he's a true 6'6", I'd almost rather have Connect than Cam Johnson paying him $27 million or how much ever. I don't remember how much Cam Johnson makes now with his new contract, but at 25 to 27 million or something. But
I'll look it up.
I'd rather have those guys, just take a 5-year younger forward and see how that goes.
Yeah, Cam Johnson he has $5 million in incentives. With likely incentives, he's approximately 23 million. His contract's kind of weird. 24 million. 23 million. Yeah. So a lot of money. But that's the thing is okay, you hired Mike Schmitz. This is where, as a front office, if you had faith in your scouting, you wouldn't be sitting here being yeah, we're definitely trading the pick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Eric Olds says, yeah.
Go ahead.
Eric Olds says, what if this draft class sucks or whatever, or you think it sucks. No front office is sitting there thinking, oh, we have the 13th pick. It's just like a waste of pick because there's like not a chance any. Well, okay, Billy King thought that, and that's how we get Damian Lillard.
Yeah,
like, right. That's dumb front office things, right?
Yep. I mean, 2013 draft sucked, and Milwaukee found Giannis at 15.
Yep, and Gobert was at 27 in that draft.
Like, bro, Eric, I would rather take. This is gonna maybe sound a little wild. I'd rather take Tyon Grant Foster at 13 than trade it for Cam Johnson. I don't expect you to agree with that, but like, that guy he's 24. His story's kind of wild. He's 24, but I think he has upside to be better than Cam Johnson. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it says the 2024 draft ended up sucking, but Portland still found Salon. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is you should be hoping he falls. Like, it's just silly stuff here, man. Like, you can find role players with that pick that are cheap, too. That's not really the problem. So, I don't get it.
There is one scenario, like, I don't, like, obviously the teams don't really make sense. But maybe there's a team, like we know the Magic sitting there at 20, right? Maybe we trade them like Thibault and 13 and just move down to 20 and that's how we cut salary. Yeah, maybe that's what the way they're looking.
Depending who's there on 13, like maybe that's, I mean, trading down to cut Thibault's salary is stupid because you shouldn't have mashed him in the freaking first place.
Right. But that's what Dallas ended up doing with Bertans last year. Still ended up with Lively. Yeah, and they ended up using the trade exception they got from that and got Omax as well. So
yeah, like silly stuff, dude. They should not be dead set on trading the pick. You got to evaluate your options down the line. So that's my worry, is they've mentally resigned themselves to trading the pick. I'm sure they're still doing their work scouting everybody in this draft class, but I mean, I just don't trust the direction with this front office, as you guys know, but also I don't trust them to come up with a viable multi-year plan. It just feels like, everything is in the moment or a few months down the line. Like, when they got Brogdon back, was the plan to keep him throughout the year? What's the plan with Brogdon now? We're just going to try and get a little bit better so we can make a play-in? Or is the goal to win a championship? Like, are we in a rebuild? They won't even say the word rebuild. Right? So the messaging and the question marks about the direction are very valid. I understand that people are always going to put blind faith in this organization, at least as long as Neil Olshey isn't the GM, and just assume that they know exactly what they're doing and have a great plan in place. But I fully expect them to have some big-name forward targets that aren't gettable and fall back to either trading 13 for a guy like Cam Johnson or just being like, we couldn't figure out what we wanted to do and being very inactive. And maybe even keeping Brogdon. I don't know how they're going to tuck the tax, though. So that's why this offseason is super fascinating. This is maybe one of the most fascinating offseasons I've ever seen, Eric.
Yeah. Well, so people are saying, questioning whether this is just speculation or not. Absolutely. Like, everything right now is speculation, first of all. Second of all, we know for a fact they are right now with the picks they could get, and the only way this could go down slightly is if their pick moves down from 5 to 7 or 6 or 7 or whatever, which we know is bad for us, right? That's bad for a rebuild. So they could get saved a little bit. Or Golden State could make the playoffs, and that pick is 16, and we save a little bit extra money. So it's slightly less than the number I'm about to give you. But right now, if they keep Delano Banton, they're $8.7 million plus into the tax already with the 2 picks and a full roster of 16 players. They have to cut, or they have to dump someone somewhere along the road. And so the thinking all along is that they could be using that 13th pick and Malcolm Brogdon to trade for someone with a slightly smaller salary that's maybe not a good player or like a really good player or anything, but gets them under the tax because the team that takes Brogdon can maybe do that, or maybe a third team takes Thibault and you match someone's salary for Brogdon. Like in this scenario with, let's just say the Cam Johnson scenario, their salaries are pretty close. So if we had a third team take Thibault and I don't know, like I said, maybe we end up with like a just moving down a little bit in the draft or something. But yeah, we have to do something this summer. Whether it could come down to we might have to attach that 13th pick with how many teams are going to be valuing what little cap space or trade exceptions they have, and it's going to be tough to salary dump. We might have to just attach 13 to something to get rid of one of those players.
Not going to happen, because the one thing this organization might care about more than ducking the tax is their optics, Eric. They've tried to portray Jody as somebody that is willing to spend on the organization.
But she never actually has.
Yeah, but it's never actually
okay.
come to the point. Okay? They would much rather go into next season, I think, in the tax to keep that optics up with the plan like, yeah, we're definitely going to duck it. We're going to do something crazy at the deadline if we have to.
What is worse, Tori? Them being in a situation where they have to attach 13 to Thibault or Robert Williams to get rid of one of them, or that their plan is so stupid that they just care so much about what people think that they're willing to scrap their whole plan just to prove a point that Jody's not cheap.
I mean, I just think I don't know if it's quite that thought out. I think it's more so, how do I explain this? I think it's more so they've always found a way to duck the tax, even if that way was questionable. Okay? And they were able to defend it. If it comes down to them, because here's the thing, free agency is after. Okay? I don't think they're going to dump the pick so early to duck the tax that early in the offseason. I think it would more so be you draft somebody with it, you go around to free agency, and you figure it out that way, right? After teams' cap space dries up, if you still have Brogdon, that's when you're just sitting there like, okay, hopefully Philadelphia strikes out, and then we can trade Brogdon to Philly. Like, that would be the plan. Because it doesn't make sense to turn down whatever they got offered for Brogdon if they ultimately had to trade a first-round pick to get off of other salary because they didn't trade Brogdon for expirings and assets. And if they were that worried about being put in a position where they'd have to dump a lottery pick to dump salary, just like outright, then I think they would have traded Brogdon ahead of time. I think they would have done something ahead of time. So I think it's more so a situation where they think they're going to be able to duck the tax leading into free agency. I don't think they're attaching the 13th pick to anything. And if things get really bad in free agency where they can't do anything, then I think they use that as like, see, Jody's willing to pay. We're not even a winning team. And look, we're in the tax going into the season. And then they try and figure something out midseason because that serves their narrative. And then they can still find a way out of it if things really get that bad. So I don't think it's them putting the narrative above any sort of plan. I think it's, if all plans fail, they're going to fall back on that narrative and then figure something out next season.
But since Cronin's took over, they have made the moves ahead of time to make sure they conduct the tax. And what if the reason they didn't do it this year was because they actually got in a situation where they had damaged goods and that person might not have value moving forward?
I mean, I don't know what the deal was with Brogdon and his injury. Like, it doesn't, look too good, but Joe Cronin could have lied when he said that they got lots of offers for Malcolm Brogdon. But he was playing up basically until the trade deadline.
It could have been that they did have offers for him, but then when he had the injury or re-injured it or whatever, that those offers went off the table. But he's not lying that he said that they had plenty of offers, because those offers were there, but they went away once he got hurt.
Yeah, I mean, so what's the question?
So what if this wasn't their plan? Like, their plan was to set it up to duck the tax at the trade deadline, and they got stuck in a situation where they couldn't, and now we're kind of having to rethink how they're going to avoid it this summer, because the option they thought they were going to use isn't maybe available.
I mean, I think they would have taken the Rockets trade then for Robert Williams III.
That happened before the trade deadline, or before.
Yeah, but how many days before, right? Because when did this injury happen? When did this Brogdon injury happen? Wasn't it a gradual injury? Because we heard reports 2 weeks before the deadline, it sounded like, yeah, they just want to keep Brogdon. And that was before the Oladipo-Adams trade.
I don't think they want to trade Robert Williams, though.
Yeah, but I think they would rather trade Robert Williams for seconds and duck the tax that way than attach the 13th pick to Thibault, who they matched the year before. Because A, that's a worse roster move. B, that's worse for optics too. C, Robert Williams is a backup center who's always hurt. And you can literally use that to excuse dumping him.
I don't think they're smart enough to figure all this out.
Yeah, we can play like the hypothetical game and they can all be possible, but I think that they would have done that Rockets trade. So
you're cutting out so much. I didn't hear anything you said.
Really?
Sorry.
I think your internet might be lagging. I'm not sure. Maybe it's mine. We can play what if with like a bunch of hypotheticals, and they're all possible given this front office and organization. But I do think they would have taken the Robert Williams trade in that scenario. Did you hear me?
Yeah. So the Steven Adams trade was February 2nd, so 6 days before the deadline. Malcolm played in the game last night. That would be his last game. He played 35 minutes that night.
Yeah, but did he aggravate it that night? Because it's tendonitis. So if they knew he was damaged goods leading up to the deadline, because that was the hypothetical you posed, like...
But no, I'm saying, what if that was their plan at the deadline, to deal him at the deadline, but he got hurt 6 days beforehand?
I mean, we were talking about 2 weeks. We were talking about 2 weeks before how everything was that they wanted to keep him.
Yes, I know what the thought out there was.
Yeah. And if they wanted to trade him, why were they playing him 35 minutes?
Because they're stupid, Tori.
Yes, they're stupid. I just think we can play hypotheticals like maybe they're just so stupid that they did something like this, which is incredibly stupid. And it'd be like, yeah, I mean, possibly. But at the same time, like, we have to apply. I feel like we have to apply some sort of logic because we could get extremely wild with the speculation because they are capable of being very, very stupid. So for me, like, I'm still going to apply a little bit of logic to any hypothetical, and that situation is definitely possible. But end of the day, they can't sit here and say, like, we turned down trades for Brogdon and wanted to keep him and then attach the 13th pick to Thibault, who they took on his salary willingly when they matched him after trading 2 second-round picks for him, and then trade a lottery pick just to dump him. Like, that is... I legitimately think the people that live their life defending Joe Cronin on Twitter and on Reddit would have a problem with that. Like, that's how bad that would be.
Well, he had to get rid of Olshay's mistakes, right?
I mean, I'm sure there would be people defending it, you know? This is a terrible draft! Like, but I just do not see things playing out that way. If things played out that way, you would see probably... I think chat would see you lose your mind and me laugh my ass off.
Yeah.
Like, you would be pissed off beyond belief. Like, SARS or Salon's there on the board.
Oh, Jesus.
We do that. You would have insane meltdown.
Trade. Portland has traded the rights to Jean Salon for cash and oh man.
I mean, you would just see me laugh at how stupid and how absurd that is. I mean, listen, like, there's no way to defend that.
You're calling another trade already. It's like the Kevin Knox thing.
Listen, like,
we're gonna draft Ricochet and then trade frickin' Salon and oh my God.
Eric, they
Just
obviously care about
we
optics.
didn't even want to.
Eric, they're scared. They're scared of trading their own pick, of trading Scoot to help Dame, because what if Scoot becomes a star? I think they would also be scared of using a lottery pick to cap dump in case whoever was taken at that pick becomes a star. And there's a decent chance that there's somebody after that becomes a really good player, and you could sit there and be like, you guys could have drafted that guy, but instead you dumped money. Because then they can't sit there and say, like, Jody, you know, is willing to commit financially to this team, because there's still people that try and peddle that theory. That goes completely out the window. That's impossible to peddle anymore. The optics of it look horrible, especially if it's like Thibault, and they obviously care so much about their optics. I still don't think there's any chance of that happening, because I think they would much rather kick the can down the road and figure it out at the deadline before they completely sacrifice the narratives that they've been building over the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And completely sacrifice themselves in terms of the optics with the fan base. Because viewership's already down 50 to 60%, but people are going to be paying attention during the offseason, and if they do something like that, that just shows, like, A, you're not committed to the rebuild, and B, you're also not committed to winning. You're literally not committed to anything other than Jody saving her pocketbooks. And then the talk about her selling the team gets even louder. So I just think for all those reasons, there's no way they do that before free agency even starts. Like, I don't think that's viable at all. I'd be just as shocked as if we traded for freaking Embiid.
Part of the problem, though, is roster spots doing that way. They almost have to make a move this summer.
They'll cut Banton before they... I mean, they cut Watford, Eric. Like, they'll cut Banton before they attach a lottery pick to a cap dump.
Yeah.
They'll waive Duop.
Do you think it's... that? Okay, let's just say there's a team willing to take Robert Williams or Matisse Thybulle without any compensation. They just want those players for free. Do you think they would do that?
I think they would do it with Thibault, yeah.
I think Memphis or OKC says Thibault, we have a trade exception, we'll take Thibault. You think they would say yes to that? Because that does solve their problem.
Yeah, I think they would. I think if they could redo everything with Matisse Thybulle, they would. Trading the seconds and then matching his contract. And it's not necessarily because like they didn't want Matisse Thybulle. Obviously they did. They traded for him and matched him. But the situation that they've put themselves in financially, I think they'd rather have that off the books right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they'll find a way without it being that drastically bad.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why, despite people checking out from this team, you know what I mean? And, like, obviously games suck right now and the rebuild sucks and this and that. That is why this offseason should still be a lot of fun just to find out what the hell happens with all the storylines. And that's why, like, I hope that people aren't so disenfranchised with this organization that they tune out from the offseason. Because even if you're frustrated with the organization, man, it's fascinating to see, in a way, are they going to piss us off even more? Like, how are they going to wiggle out of their financial burdens? You know what I mean? Like, there's just something about it. Something about finding out the solutions to these problems that they've given themselves is kind of, what's the word? Enthralling?
Yeah. They could also stretch someone. Who are they stretching, Tori?
I don't know. So, really, really curious to find out. But that's what we have to look forward to this offseason, is how they wiggle themselves out of this. Anyway, anything else for this stream?
No, I appreciate everyone for watching. Hope you guys have a good rest of your night and good Tuesday, and we'll see you back on the post-game show, another early game on Wednesday.
Yep, looking forward to it. Yeah, man. Super excited for this offseason. Hopefully at the end of the offseason, we're not sitting here saying, we don't got no assets. We don't got no... Anyway. I love the soundboard. I need to actually get it on like a physical, like on my stream deck, so I can just spam soundboard. We need a laugh track, Eric. For every time you do your Joe Cronin impersonations, we can play it. I can sync up a laugh track to it.
I wish I could hear it.
I know. Maybe we'll figure something out in the future. But that's a wrap for this postgame show. Shout out to the Rockets for being the Blazers and tying up the Warriors in the win column. Hopefully the Warriors can lose tomorrow. Hopefully that pick can move up even higher, so that it's a little easier to attach it to a Matisse Thybulle captain. Anyway. We'll catch you guys again on Wednesday, approximately 7 p.m. post-game show. And then Friday, that the Blazers play at Miami. So I wonder if Heat fans are going to boo the Blazers because they want to boo Cronin. We'll see. But I appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thank you to Alvaro for gifting Taylor Packer the membership. Thank you guys for supporting. We're out of here. We'll catch you on Wednesday. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.